Yep, I'll do a venti hot chocolate with almond milk, no whip.
Hi guys, Allergy here. Now that the weather is cooling down, I wanted to talk about my favorite cold weather drink from Starbucks and how I paleofy it. Then after that, I'm also going to talk about a situation that I witnessed at a Starbucks a couple weeks ago. It involved a very common food allergen being put into food after it was requested off. How an employee handled it, I thought kind of poorly at first. And I'll get into that in a minute, but first let's talk about this. This is a venti hot chocolate from Starbucks. I cannot eat dairy. I can get away with it in very small quantities, which I will get around to. If I eat a lot of it, I get very congested. My stomach gets really upset. If I have enough for it, I will literally be sick for days. I really try to avoid it. I don't know anyone with a dairy allergy or a sensitivity that doesn't cheat a little bit from time to time just to have something once in a while and we suffer the consequences. I know probably at least half a dozen people that also have food allergies that are the same way, if it's not so severe. To make this paleo-ish, I'll explain why it's ish as well. I'm actually going to do a video on the paleo lifestyle that is coming. Paleo is basically a set of guidelines and eating that is very natural. It helps with a lot of food allergies, a lot of immune problems, inflammatory issues. Basically, if you have a health problem you're having a hard time solving, our food is basically poison. All the processing, all the preservatives, it's not good for you. The paleo lifestyle takes those out of the diet. There is a ratio of 80-20. Typically still see results doing 80% paleo and 20% not. Every 10 meals, that would essentially mean you could have 2 meals that were not paleo. I'll get into all of this in a different video. However, that gives you a little bit of leeway unless you have heavy allergies. As I said, this is the venti hot chocolate. I get it with no whipped cream, which I'm not a huge fan of anyways. I don't really miss it. And I get it made with almond milk. Almond milk is paleo. It is still processed. While it is paleo, it is something you should still be drinking in moderation. It's not something you should have a ton of. Milk, it's not particularly environmentally friendly because it does take a whole lot of nuts to create the milk. It's not something that's easy to create or harvest, so it is hard on the environment. But this isn't something I get very often. It's definitely not a daily thing. Definitely usually not even a weekly thing. Aim for Starbucks for breakfast whenever we travel. I feel like we can't travel and we're just getting the Starbucks to make up for it. This is, as I said, paleo-ish. The almond milk is, but it's sort of a moderate thing. I actually thought this was made with a cocoa blend. I did learn today that it is actually made with their mocha sauce, which I guess makes sense. And that is made with water, sugar, cocoa processed with alkali, and natural flavor. Let's see what that means. Oh, okay. So this is made with Dutch cocoa. Essentially, the processing with alkali makes it Dutch cocoa. Dutch cocoa is actually paleo. That's the one you want to go for if you are paleo. It's a lot darker of a cocoa, so if you like dark chocolate, I just think Dutch cocoa is the way to go. Even if I wasn't paleo, I would still be going for Dutch. So essentially, it means that it is chemically manipulated to reduce acidity. Most things are either alkaline or acid. Alkaline is base, so it essentially removes acidity from the cocoa. It's a really, really nice dark chocolate, so I was right about that too. Making this with almond milk over the regular milk makes it even darker than their standard hot chocolate, which I think is really good. I thought it was made with a darker chocolate, but I didn't realize it was actually Dutch cocoa. Makes sense, especially for the flavor. The sugar in that, and the fact that syrup is very heavily processed typically, that is what makes it not completely paleo. For me, I have so many food allergies that my cheats are things like this that are barely outside of the spectrum of paleo because it's not always worth it. I just get really sick. Getting to why I don't typically get this a whole lot. So in this here, there is 450 calories. That is a ton. Now that is also in the standard one with milk. The milk this size by itself is 370 calories. I would think that almond milk in this size would probably be like 150 to 200. I couldn't find that on the website, so we're kind of just guessing at this math. This also has 55 grams of carbohydrates. 5 of that is dietary fiber. Dietary fiber you actually subtract from the total carb number to get your carbs because the fiber is typically more soluble and you're not processing it the same way as a carbohydrate. That means there is about 50 carbs if you count it that way, 47 grams of sugar. That's a lot. However, the milk itself has 36 grams of sugar. Imagine that the almond milk might still have a little bit of sugar in it, but it's not going to be nearly as bad. Overall, it's a lot healthier for you. I tried not to eat a lot of dairy even before I realized I had such a problem with it. And when I do the paleo video, I will tell you exactly what led to the paleo diet. I really didn't even have a choice. I was so sick all the time. Even without it, I tried to not eat a lot of dairy. We are the only species that ingests the lactate of another animal. Just don't like that. There are a lot of studies that it is not really as good for you as it is. Almond milk actually has double the calcium. Milk is mostly touted for calcium, vitamin D. There's actually way more calcium in almond milk. Also, and I'll get into this more in the paleo video as well, but there are a lot of theories. I really believe there's some truth in it that dairy, much like Big Pharma, Big Dairy, has paid for a whole lot of PSAs and awareness campaigns to make dairy a lot better for you than it actually is. Look at nutrition in general, it evolves a lot, even every decade. We learn new things all the time. I, for one, am just not a fan of eating dairy. Absolutely love goat cheese, and I do still indulge in that on occasion. Really try to stay away from all dairy all the time. Add on to that, ethically, if you've never seen a milking machine, it's pretty horrible. If you have not seen raw milk, it is pussy and bloody because these poor udders are so overworked. There's a lot of damage, and you end up with milk and blood in the milk because of that. When I was a teenager, I had a friend that was a little bit older that worked in dairy, and this was long before the nut and oat milk and everything like that started to get popular, and he drank only non-dairy milk because he was so repulsed by what he saw working with dairy cows. Between the milk itself and I don't know if it was so much the treatment of the animals. That would have been my problem. Not an easy job. Even without paleo, I have really shied away from milk for years. We've gone over some of the nutrition. Really about it on the drink. Again, this is something probably been months. We're not morning people, so if we're out and about early, we'll grab Starbucks. If we're traveling or on vacation or doing anything like that, it's more of like a special treat than it is an all the time thing for us. Mostly I cannot drink all the sugar all the time. It's just not good for you. I'll get more into that in the paleo video. The things that can be affected by sugar are pretty insane. Even when I eat bad, it affects my skin heavily. Very sensitive person. I am sensitive to everything, and it seems like it just gets worse the older I get. I feel like now that I try to eat clean all the time, it's definitely bottoming out. When you are constantly taking in things that your body isn't fond of, the histamines start building up in your system and make you sicker for longer. So if I were to have, ranch every single day, it would get to the point that I was sick and congested constantly. If I only have it once every few weeks or once a month, I might be congested for a few hours, but it's not going to be constantly. That is where I also wanted to talk about something I witnessed at Starbucks to do with food allergies. For one thing, dairy is such a common allergy. There is a difference between an intolerance and a full-on allergy. Also comes in varying degrees. Like I said, I can get away with a very small amount with minimal side effects. If I eat a lot, I could be sick for a week. 65% of the population has some sort of lactose intolerance where they have a hard time digesting it. That tells me that's really probably not something our species should be eating. We have a lizard species that 65% of the population had a really hard time digesting that food. We probably just wouldn't feed the food because there's so much other variability, so many other things you can eat. Dairy, I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you these are the reasons that I'm not a fan of it. If you're sick a lot, if you have allergy problems, you definitely want to check out my paleo video. Some of this might be the problem, and it's not just dairy. A whole lot of foods that are problematic because of the way they're processed, the way they're prepared, and just the makeup of the food itself that makes it difficult for some people. Well, I was at a Starbucks and a Kroger. A woman in front of me ordered a pumpkin spice frappuccino, ordered it specifically with almond milk, but she still wanted the whipped cream. She had a mask on, her back was to me, and I was 6 feet behind her. The way she ordered this. The fact that she got whipped cream on it doesn't necessarily mean that the person it was for doesn't still have a mild dairy allergy. It doesn't, because some people can get away with a small amount, but not a lot. If I really wanted to get whipped cream on this, I could. I may not feel good for a couple hours, but that's also my prerogative not to. Some people can get away with a little bit with absolutely no side effects. She double checked and asked if it was almond milk. The kid behind the counter said it wasn't. She did order it that way. I heard her, and I was only loosely paying attention. And he got kind of snarky and said, well, I can remake it, but it's obviously not for a food allergy if she's getting the whipped cream on top. I was honestly kind of flaming at this point. Like, their staff need better education on it. For one, it could very well be a food allergy. Again, fine with a little bit. If they were to give me this with dairy, I would be sick for a week if I drank this much dairy. Whole lot. Apologetic. It wasn't her fault because it was them that messed up. I guess I don't understand the fight he put up about it, especially It's his products. He's not paying for it to be remade. It's literally going to be written off. She was so apologetic. She offered to pay for it. That he did calm down, but it was his fault. You could literally put somebody in the hospital. You don't pay attention, or if you just don't think that they really need the almond milk because they got whipped cream on it. And he did change his attitude a little bit and even offered to pay for it. An attitude with her I didn't think was right at all. Had he not fixed it, had he gave her a hard time, I definitely would have stepped in. Attitude changed. I didn't say anything. I really do think that they need more education. First off, she ordered it that way, so that's how she should get it. Regardless of a food allergy, regardless of a preference, she ordered it that way. Furthermore, being that dairy, again, 65% of our population has a lactose intolerance, with being a full-on allergy. Something that they need to be versed in, and people can get away with a little bit. Sometimes servers get irritated. I don't eat grain. I don't eat a whole lot of things. So a lot of those things I can get away with just a little bit of. And I've had servers get irritated with me too. And once I explain myself, they usually calm down right away. But I just wish that food service in general was a little bit more educated. That's basically where I'm going, is that I just think food service does need a little bit more training. On top of that, if somebody orders something a certain way and it's offered that way, takes advantage of that, especially if they're willing to like pay extra for it, which I always am. I know that I'm difficult because of how many issues I have. So I'm always happy. Charge me extra for whatever you need to. I'm happy for whatever I have to pay to get things the way I need them. To switch them out for free, then I also don't think that it should be overlooked. I shouldn't be given a hard time. What it boils down to is workers really do need a little bit more training on sensitivities. Levels. That if you don't listen or you don't think someone is telling the truth, so you do what you want, you literally could land someone in the hospital. Keep that in mind. Thank you so much for watching. Down below and tell me what your favorite hot drink is, Starbucks or not, and I will see you guys next time. Can you not, please? No, please go. I don't know what you're doing. Rummaging. Even anything here.